Okay, so
Listen,
we have Mike with us today. Mike, will you tell us just a little bit about you as a person, like where you're from, what you may do for work?
okay. So I am from Ohio. Um, for work, I am a what they be calling them people that don't have no job, but they do a whole lot of stuff. A
Oh my
A,
drifter,
God.
a drifter. Okay.
like the vagabonds on the beach.
I love that. I never heard that
But
before.
no, I technically do social work, but I'm not a social worker
Nice.
yet.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a journey to get there, but yeah,
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, all month we've been talking with men about different aspects of men's health. And so we've talked
Hmm.
about already just um men's health in the sense of be surviving or navigating society. We did that last week. And so this week we wanted to focus on parent trauma. Because a lot of episodes that we've interviewed men in, we touch a little bit on
Yeah.
like their relationship with a parent. I think Dre did, like he talked about his dad a little bit
Hmm.
and just kind of how his dad didn't really create the safe space to feel like he could be vulnerable with his dad.
Yeah. And how
And
that shows
then
up as him being a parent.
Yep. And then
Hmm.
we talked to Atlas about just surviving and how his parents played a role in that. But
Hmm.
this week we wanted to focus on like parent trauma because the reality is a lot of the things that we deal with have come from childhood. And a lot of our first ideas of what a man is come from our parents, as how they treat little boys. And so how that has impacted men as they've gotten older or reached adulthood and what that has done to them, because I don't feel like a lot of people talk about that. We always
Yeah.
talk about daddy issues with women, but we don't really dive into like parental issues as a whole or even for men. So we are hoping that you will help us navigate that conversation today.
okay.
um so first, I
That
guess my first question is, do you feel like you even have any version of parental trauma? And I know we overuse the word trauma these days, but do you feel like you have parental trauma at
Yeah.
all?
so I think as we age and we go through childhood, a lot of the times if we don't experience like mainstream traumas, right?
Hmm.
So parents that were like physically abusive, not just spanking us or disciplining us,
Yeah.
or if we weren't abused sexually, or if we didn't come from one of those situations with a parent that was a drug addict but was still functioning. If we didn't have that parent that was out in the streets and we didn't see them for 4 or 5 days, had to take care of our siblings, we don't really view what we went through as children as trauma,
Hmm.
even though it may have been traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we underestimate trauma in others, because what's traumatic for me may not be traumatic for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I at work I just had an experience with a lady saying, "Well, my child, they saying that she has PTSD. I don't know where she was traumatized." And I was just like, "Ma'am,
Hmm.
I can see it, and I've just read these 2 pages." So just trying to explain that to the parent who's been through a lot more than the child.
Hmm.
It's like, well, it ain't like she's been to war or nothing. Well, that's not the only way you can get PTSD. It's not just from fighting wars, it's post traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So, whatever traumatized you probably stressed you out.
Mm-hmm.
And that stress affects your life majorly. So, I don't think that I realized any of my childhood traumas until I became an adult and they started to manifest. And affect other relationships.
Mm.
But I don't think I truly realized them until I went to therapy. So my therapy journey is what really brought out and caused me to see the traumas that I had from childhood and how I was being a toxic person in different relationships, be it friendships or romantic, without even knowing it.
Mm.
And just being like, oh, that's just me. That's just how I am. But how I am is a result of these childhood experiences.
Yeah.
But a lot of us don't look at it that way because we're like, my parents did the best they could. My parents weren't bad parents. They wasn't beating me. They wouldn't let people touch on me. We had lights. We had food. The
Mm.
bare minimum that parents should like do. If you had
Yeah.
the bare minimum of what a parent should do, you like, oh, my parents were fine.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And don't mess around and be in some extracurricular activities that you didn't have to be in. You're like, oh, I had a good childhood.
Yeah. Normalizing the good enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you say that you didn't recognize yours till you were an adult, and as you were navigating or digging them up, I'll even say it like that,
Mm.
were you able to identify traumas that were even more, what's the word I want to say? Um, that were more apparent because of your gender as a boy, you're a man, but as a
Yeah.
boy, thinking about that trauma, when you reflect on childhood trauma, was there any that your parents caused that stemmed from your gender
Mm.
only?
So I think, and you know what's crazy? I don't even think that society in general looks at the emotional trauma that it just inflicts on young boys, especially boys of color, because emotions are not looked at as acceptable,
Mhm.
especially if you're looking at what society considers more feminine emotions. They, but they're okay with these quote unquote masculine emotions, which are typically what we would view as the negative emotions: anger, rage.
Mhm.
Oh, that's just a boy being a boy. He got to let that out. No, he has to let that out because he just fell off his bike and his whole knee is down to the white meat. And you told him quit crying, ain't nothing wrong with you. But clearly, I need stitches.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't tell a little girl that fell off her say if she fell off her bike and she down to the white meat, oh come here, baby. It'll
Mhm.
be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So even though that's not this traditional view of trauma, you learn to disregard your own emotions and not open up about them.
Mhm.
So when you get older, that's now your norm because as you've aged, you've never had that space to truly and genuinely express them because you'll be looked at as a weaker or stop with all that girly stuff.
Mhm.
So it's interesting when you have parents that are like, oh, you can talk to me about anything. But a lot of the times your actions show you what we can and can't discuss and your openness to even show your own emotions.
Yeah.
So, like, my dad always told me, hey, you guys can talk to me about anything. And he would have, conversations with us about like his past, things that he was doing that were right or wrong, so that, we wouldn't make those same decisions. But there was not an emotional openness. There was, we're open with limitations. So this condition is we're open, but once we get into real emotion, we're gonna kind of deviate from this. But that's how he was raised too. So it's hard to break that cycle when every typically let me not say every because I don't want to like be putting people in boxes. Culturally, it is a
Mhm.
norm that men and women can express different emotions,
Yeah.
especially then it's even more stigmatized in subcultures, especially those of minorities. So when you are in a process of breaking that pattern, it's difficult. But I feel like until adults and millennials, particularly, get help with their emotions and expression of those, their children are going to be in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Hmm. That's a lot. That makes sense. Hmm. So as you fight that battle, I'm gonna ask the question that I just feel like no, I'm gonna ask this question because I feel like it's the reality, and sometimes people won't allow themselves to have it. Were you ever mad at your parents? Did you ever reach a point where you were like, I'm pissed? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why y'all couldn't do better? Because now I got to do all of this and I got to do all this work in a society that doesn't really want me to do it because I am still a man. And y'all didn't teach me to do it. Like, have you just gotten upset or had strong, intense feelings towards your parents throughout the process?
Mm-hmm.
yes. So I was legit like I was just pissed off at them, but I think we look at our parents as parents. We don't look at them as people. So, and looking at them as parents is like, y'all get on my nerves. Like, really? Y'all could have didn't. Like, y'all thought that was the best way to do this?
Yeah.
So now you have to unpack all these things that you don't think and feel that you should have to unpack. So looking at them as people, as I've gotten older and I've had a couple relationships, it's easier to see the different hats that people wear.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it easier to have conversations with your parents and to not have conversations that are not needed because typically parents are not going to intentionally harm their children, right? And then I say conversations that aren't needed. I don't need to tell you that you F me up emotionally in relationships because of your effed up relationship, but it's acknowledging, okay, I am this way emotionally, and with just my thought process is flawed. So I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes we have flawed thought processes,
Mm-hmm.
or is it processes or processes
Whatever you wanted to be,
Whichever
child.
one.
that we have developed based on what we've been exposed to. So it's like, okay, but they're defense mechanisms oftentimes. And I think people realize that like oftentimes our thoughts, our defense mechanisms are running through them.
Mm-hmm.
So just acknowledging that they are people and their romantic hat had nothing to do with your parental hat, but
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that because I'm a child, they overlap. So you're wearing both of them while you're interacting with me, especially if the other parent is near.
Mm. Have you forgiven your parents?
I have, and I think that what allowed me to do it, because I still had like this like resentment,
Mm-hmm.
even while I was in therapy, like that still wasn't really a issue that we really got worked through because I feel like there's so much that you don't know about a relationship as a child looking at your parents because it's not your business. But not realizing that relationship affects you. But I have a good friend that told me, people are people and everybody is living a human experience. So once I was able to like look at my parents as people within a relationship and not think about them as my parent, it was very easy to forgive them because it's like you're navigating this relationship with your person the best way you know how, while in the process raising children.
Mm.
Because I be thinking about myself, like some of these people I've been with, if we had a kid during those times, whoa, that kid would be messed up. And I think like a lot of people who are of a certain age, I ain't gonna say our ages, that don't have children. I think one of the big components is making sure that you have this partner that you're on the same page with in all aspects, so that you don't have a kid and, for lack of better, can I cuss? I ain't gonna
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can curse.
For lack of better words, fuck your kid up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, I am not going to be the reason that my child is in therapy.
I
Exactly.
hear that so often from people. It's crazy.
So I think we literally do operate in a sense of I need to find the right person so I don't
Yeah.
F my kid up.
It's interesting that you say that because then it makes me want to ask you, as a man who has gone through a parental type of trauma and not wanting to mess your kid up, has that taken the desire away to even be a parent?
Ooh.
No, I think it has for me in general. I still have this desire to be a parent, but I think it's prevented me from becoming a parent.
Mm. Mm.
Because like you want it, but you're afraid of messing up this person that you literally have to teach everything. So am I going to teach them the right way where they are? So this is how I look at it when I think about a kid, right? Am I going to be nurturing enough to let this kid know what genuine love is without conditions and teach them how to express their emotions? For like a girl, show them that if this man can't provide you emotional safety and stability, you don't need him
Mm-hmm.
because he has other things that he needs to work on to get comfortable with expressing his emotions. And for the boy, am I going to raise him to be a shitty husband that doesn't give his wife emotions and
Mm.
share his emotions with his wife or husband?
I was gonna say, or his
Mm-hmm.
husband.
So I think those are things that I think about when thinking about being a parent, not just, you know, since I'm able to, eat, keep lights on,
Mm-hmm.
shower, I'm sure I'm gonna be able to, provide those things to my kid, but that's basic parent stuff. The other part is, am I going to set them up emotionally, mentally? Am I going to be the reason that they experience anxiety? So, and I think a lot of parents don't think about that because that's not the common things. I'm keeping this person alive. I'm providing them shelter.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
not going hungry. What are their emotional needs met?
So I want to add another piece.
Oh, goodness.
Don't start with me, Bree. So all of this that you're saying is like it's is interesting. I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the honesty. And so then I want to say all of that comes, and then let's add in the component that you're black, that you're a black man or a man of color. How does that heighten all of that already. Like adding the fact that you're black on top of the man part, just the man, the parents not trying to have emotions. Like, what does that also add to that parental piece of trauma that shows up in other areas of your life?
So looking at, if I look at my father, right? He's a black man. I could not understand his walking in the world until I became older to see why he told me not to do certain things, why he told me not to go certain places, why he told me, So it was weird when I went to a private school, right? So that was like I went from mixed to all black to predominantly white.
Mm.
And I distinctly remember having this conversation with my dad before going. And he was like, listen, I don't care who you date, but if you are going to date someone else, make sure her parents are cool with who you are.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it in a way I knew what he meant because I'm black. But I feel like if somebody else was listening, and y'all knew what I was talking about
Yeah,
because we black.
of course.
And I was just like, why is he even saying that? So coming, in from eighth grade, right? Going to high school. Like, what is the dude talking about? And it didn't hit me because there was only two other people at my school in middle school. So everybody looked like me. But just I think we don't I think black fathers teach their sons how to be safe in society and to make it back home, right?
Mhm.
That they don't teach them to be expressive of their emotions. And I think we do a disservice to not only black boys and men, but black women as well. Because I've had all these heightened emotions all day outside.
Mhm.
Now, when I come home, I'm just expecting you to read my mind and know what they are. But you're not a mind reader. And you've probably had these same emotions out navigating the world as a black woman. So I think that oftentimes we don't give we and you asked me the question as a black woman, how does this impact you as a black man? I think it impacts me as a black man in the sense that you can never let your guard down. So since you're not able to let your guard down, you can't express your emotions.
Mhm.
Let me rephrase that. If you can't express your vulnerable emotions, I can still express my anger, my rage, my frustration, but I can't express my fear, my hurt, my disappointment because it's constant protect mode.
Mm. That's unfortunate. I mean, as a black woman, I get it, obviously, but that is unfortunate because at least as a black woman, I still have the woman component, right? So I may be looked at as an angry black woman, but the woman part says I'm emotional and I'm vulnerable and I'm allowed to be, even though I'm black. So I can imagine how much more heavier that feels being a man and then being black. Um, But
But
yeah,
from my
so
experience, I want to touch on that because I hear it all the time and it kind of irks me. Most black women I see are not angry.
Thank you.
A lot of black women that they typically call angry, maybe their voices become heightened in response to your disrespect.
Oh, can you repeat that?
here we go.
Maybe
Say it
maybe
a
their
little louder.
voices become heightened in response to your disrespect.
Hmm.
But if I'm gonna use this term because I don't know nothing else to say, if Karen get loud, oh well, what's wrong? Well, what did we do? You
Hmm.
did the same thing that you just did to this black woman in front of her.
Hmm.
But the black woman probably thought 34,000 thoughts in her head
Yeah.
and then just probably took whatever you gave her and walked on away
Hmm.
and said that's just not a battle I want to fight today.
Hmm.
Well, we appreciate you, taking away from that angry black woman. Because I don't feel like an angry black woman, but that's
Listen,
what they
all the black women I know are joyful.
say. See? Joyful. That's the new word. Be a joyful black woman.